communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the things I think we can be most proud of. So there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America, from then and on, will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
And we were never asked whether we even wanted it.
Es handelt sich bei ihm einen pathologischen, verbrecherischen Wahnsinn, nachweisbar von Juden erdacht und von Juden geführt, mit dem Ziel der Vernichtung der europäischen Kulturvölker und der Aufrichtung einer international jüdischen Weltherrschaft über sie.
They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role.
Nachweisbar von Juden erdacht und von Juden geführt.
Absolutely. All right. We will move right on along. All right, folks. So there is some news on the Ukraine front that is, of course, not good. So remember a little over a week ago, Ukraine carries out the biggest ever swarm drone attack on multiple Russian airfields, claims over 40 aircraft damaged or destroyed deep inside Russia. These bases are 2,000 to 4,500 kilometers inside Russia. Now, the liberals were very happy about this. They took a big victory lap, acted like this was great news. The Atlantic magazine writes a piece. Ukraine's drone strikes deep into Russia delivered a humiliating blow to Moscow last weekend. Kiev's defenders celebrated the attack, but the extraordinary operation got a different response in the White House. Anger, writes Jonathan Lemire for The Atlantic. So Donald Trump was asked about this. This would have been on Saturday, June 7th. Here he is. This was posted to X. Here he is on the plane saying that actually this now gives Russia a reason to retaliate and escalate the war and make peace all the more difficult.
Ukraine. Did the Ukraine drone strikes against the bombers inside Russia, the airfields, did that change your view at all of what Zelensky, the cards he has?
Well, they gave Putin a reason to go in and bomb the hell out of him last night. That's the thing I didn't like about it. When I saw it, I said, here we go. Now it's going to be a strike, you know.
Here we go, indeed. What a naysayer. The Atlantic really upset that he would be so negative on Ukraine. But here you have it. June 7th, Kharkiv hit by most powerful attack of entire war, Mayor says, as Russia pounds Ukraine again. That was an accurate headline, but a short-lived one, because actually today was reported Russia launches biggest drone assault of the war. Ukraine says the attack used almost 500 drones and missiles, breaking a record set just days earlier as Russia tries to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses, which shot down most of the weapons. Russia launched almost 500 drones and missiles at Ukraine overnight, Ukrainian forces said on Monday, in the largest in a string of record-breaking aerial assaults as peace talks stall. Despite pressure from the Trump administration to work towards a ceasefire, Russia has been stepping up its large-scale barrages in recent months. That effort has further escalated since Ukraine mounted coordinated drone strikes, strategic bombers at air bases inside Russia on June 1st. While there were no reports of major damage and only one person was killed, the scale of Russia's aerial assault was the latest step in a campaign by Moscow to overwhelm and deplete Ukrainian air defenses, one with no end in sight given a lack of progress in peace negotiations. So Martha Raddatz is in Ukraine, and this is a little piece from Good Morning America, which aired earlier today.
Already 90,000 lives lost here in Ukraine, the picture of many of those behind me. And this week we have seen Ukraine pounded by Russia, setting records in this very year. But last night was a new record, nearly 500 drones and missiles launched all across Ukraine, the highest number in this entire war. Ukraine says the large majority of those were shot down or intercepted. Most were in the western part of the country where we are now, targeting a military airfield right near here. At least one person was killed and nearly a dozen injured. Last night, we were in Kyiv. Citizens had been warned there might be massive attacks. We spent the entire night in a bomb shelter. Of course, this comes in retaliation for the unprecedented Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian bombers. So this war is far from over. George?
That is so.
Far from over, indeed. It seems that way. While mounting a new offensive on the ground in eastern Ukraine, Russia has been setting deadly records with the swarms of drones and missiles it launches at Ukraine, often hitting civilian targets in towns and cities across the country. Some records have lasted just a few days before being broken. As Russia has escalated aerial attacks, it has also been stepping up frontline assaults and has opened a new front in northeastern Ukraine. But Ukraine has continued to try to take the war to Russia, including with the attack on Russian air bases and with further drone strikes deep inside the country. The attacks came despite efforts by the Trump administration to cajole both sides towards a ceasefire. Those talks have sputtered. The latest round of talks between the two sides earlier this month in Istanbul yielded little result apart from another agreement to swap prisoners. Speaking of efforts to cajole both sides, here is a little montage of candidate Trump promising to have this wrapped up within 24 hours. This posted January 1st, 2025.
In 24 hours.
Yes, I do.
How would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well.
End that war between those two countries in 24 hours. It won't even take that long. I will get the war ended. I'll stop all of those lives from being wasted and lost, and there'll be no more bombing of Ukraine. There'll be no more bombing of Russia, and everybody will be happy.
It can be negotiated, I think, within 24 hours. It really has to be done from the office of the president, and you have to get them both in a room, and there are things you can say to each one of them, which I won't reveal now, which will guarantee that this war will end immediately.
And that to get it solved, I can do it in 24 hours. I know both players, and I can do that in 24 hours. But you can only do it from the office of the president. You need that. You need that seat. You need what's tailed in that seat. And I would have that done in 24 hours. It wouldn't even be tough. I know what to say to each of them, and there's no way they would reject it.
I would have a deal done in 24 hours from the time we started. And I would tell Zelensky something, and I would tell Putin something, and I'd get him into a room, and I'd tell him again and again. I would have a deal done very quickly.
That is the salesman, folks. Always be closing. Always be closing. Coffee is for closers only, baby. That is how you sell the sizzle, not the steak. You know, it's funny, when he dressed down Zelensky in the Oval Office, it was so gratifying to watch. It was so cathartic to see that, because we have been waiting to see that. And then, every Sunday night we have a Q&A after the show, and one of our patrons called in. I'll name drop him here, since Jimmy, he was a guest on your show once, RB Ham. And he calls in and he says, as nice as that was to see, I still don't think he knows how to end this war. I think at this point, the war is going to end when Putin wants it to end on his terms, because at this point, Russia has simply sacrificed too much to settle for what they were willing to settle for, not just at the outset of the war, but well into the war. Their demands were very simple: a neutral Ukraine, Crimea recognized as Russia, and independence for those eastern regions. And now they're going to want more because they've spilled a lot of blood. I mean, you have thousands of people die per week for this, and that Ukrainian strike earlier was the precursor for this. Trump warned about this on the airplane. He said, that's not good. That's not good. And the liberal media gave him a lot of shit. The Atlantic was just one of them. I mean, you saw in MSNBC, they were giddy about that attack, as if Ukraine was back in the game. Yeah, they're not back in the game. This just drags it out even further. It really is just a horrible human tragedy, the carnage and the human cost of this war. And now it seems like, it does seem like peace is further away than it's ever been, thanks to this latest ratcheting up.
Yeah, well, now this seems to have just made it more likely that Russia is going to expand its territorial ambitions in Ukraine, perhaps even, as it almost certainly never intended to do, actually reabsorb Ukraine back into Russia. I don't think that was ever their intention. All very early on, Boris Johnson went in there and sabotaged a peace deal that would have allowed, I think Putin wanted the eastern regions to be able to vote about whether they'd be autonomous, whether they'd be part of Russia, whether they'd be part of Ukraine, and no NATO. That was the real issue, no NATO. But when you look at Donald Trump and you look at Vladimir Putin, I mean, Donald Trump is a joke. Vladimir Putin, whatever you think of him morally, whatever you think of him as a leader, that is a very smart, strong, capable guy. This is somebody who survived the collapse of the Soviet Union and in basically a war of thieving oligarchs wound up rising to the top without getting whacked, right? Like this is a guy who basically won a mob war and has kept that country under his control for decades, in a country where only the strong survive in those positions.
That's right. Who's more tested, Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump, who beat Hillary and Kamala? And that's
exactly.
who he beat to get where he is.
Exactly.
Putin.
Yeah, I mean that when you look at his interview with Tucker Carlson, a lot of people took exception to it. I'm not enough historian, I don't think most of us are, to analyze, well, no, in 1617, that's not what happened. But the fact that he gave this over an hour dissertation of Russian, can you imagine Donald Trump getting through 3 sentences?
Oh, you're talking about the Tucker
monologue?
interview. Yeah.
The Tucker interview. What did I say?
When he sat, say it. I just,
he sat down with Tucker and getting into all these fine points of Russian history. And you know what? It's not just Putin. Like, this is a country that is not governed or frankly populated by serious people at this point. We are surviving on the fumes of past glories, and the people who run the country now are getting by on the accomplishments of previous generations and the remnants of what they established, the institutions and the power dynamics that they set up. But none of these people could ever accomplish those things for themselves. They're simply taking advantage of them, really, at looting them. And if you look at other leaders from around the world, even from small, tiny countries, they're dignified, they're articulate. Look at what we got. We're debating the big, beautiful bill. If that is not an infantilized culture, what is?
Yep.
All
got
right.
anything, Jimmy?
No, I mean, I just don't. Do you know exactly what it is? I mean, of course, Zelensky wants to drag this war out. Of course, the Atlantic does, the corporate media, because we're living in what Eisenhower warned us against,
Yes.
the undue influence of the military industrial complex. And so when Congress gets together, they're not doing the bidding of workers or students or the elderly or anybody except their donor class, which is right now the military industrial complex, Wall Street, big pharma, and the tech industry. So I don't, of course, they're all going to be happy about it. And that's also part of the looting of this country, that the people who are looting it own the media. And so the media tells the plebes, no, this war is good. And and when Donald Trump wants to ratchet it down, that's bad because he's in the pocket of Russia and Putin. And I mean, it's just the fact that people can't, I mean, I can kind of understand how people in America could still be so stupid after they've been lied to so many times about Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Syria. Now we have a legit Al Qaeda guy running Syria, and that was all our doing. And after they lied to them about Russiagate and lied to them about COVID and lied to them about Joe Biden being demented, they still go back to the same goddamn people and believe exactly what they say about Ukraine. It's mind numbing. It's mind bending. But what I don't get is, when are the people in Ukraine going to revolt? When are they going to say enough of this? I mean, they've been dragging people off street corners.
Yeah, and that's hard.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible. And you know what I think is going to happen now is that all of these liberal pundits are now going to, because I think, Russ, you're probably right, that Putin is going to now expand his territorial ambitions, perhaps to even absorb all of Ukraine. And now these libs are going to say, we told you he was a madman on the march. Well, no, you pushed him into that. Yes, by refusing to give up the fight when you had ample opportunity to. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. In terms of the libs, I must say, since Donald Trump got elected, they've been pretty shell-shocked. The one thing that really got their lib dudgeon up was that dressing down in the Oval Office of Zelensky, man. That was the one time you saw them come together as the old MSNBC coalition to wag their fingers and become outraged, which just shows you how much of our political conversation, it's just a psyop, man. It's just a psyop. It's not real. Most of it is not real. Yeah, you really care about Ukraine. Really. Like, stop and think about it for a second, Mr. MSNBC lib. Like, why do you care? Why do you really? One in 5 children in America lives in poverty. Why don't you care about that? Because nobody told you to.
That's right.
Nobody told you to. They told you to care about this. That's why you care.
That's right.
Exactly. TV. Unvaccinated guy says, what's worse than one lesbian running with scissors? 2 lesbians scissoring with the runs. There we go. That's a good one. Thank you. Good one. Okay. Savage, thanks for the donation. That is not the sexual website search history you are looking for, Dave Carp and Company. Thank you for that. Nathan Vassell, thanks for the $10. The deep state isn't a singular focused entity. It is multiple warring factions. And when you go to Washington, just like in prison, you don't pick a gang to be with. You won't last very long. Good point. Funky Buff. That's a guy, I like that name, Funky Buff. My daughter got diagnosed with autism as an adult. I tried to get a new driver's license and they knew about it and caused a bunch of problems. I'm done with RFK too. They denied her a driver's license because she has autism. That's weird. That's very strange. That's very strange. Let's see.
She should put in an application to run Starlink.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I had jokes for that too. I thought autistic people are good with machines and building, and they would be the best drivers. Yeah. Shout out to Steph. You messed up, Jimmy. Good thing Steph doesn't sleep naked. Jimmy, you have to say yes whatever Steph wants for a souvenir to your Euro trip. Used to start to make amends for worldwide exposure. Okay. Sean Brock, actually, immigrants helped us get the New Deal. We wouldn't have unions without immigrants. Learn some history. Look up the Depression. Farm strikes. Thank you, Sean Brock. What we got here? Hamhawk. Altadena is strangely quiet today. It's as if the army is distracted. Seriously, take care of vulnerable friends and family. Thank you, Hamhawk. Appreciate that very much. Okay, let's move on. This is yours.
All right.